Hi, folks. Thanks to all who are attending, and as always, we'll pass along the link to those who registered but were unable to attend. A little bit about myself. I'm Danny Allman. I am owner of AlmonTravel, and we are the travel agency of choice for CARP, Nova Scotia. Having been asked through Bill Van Gorder, who is the Chief Policy Officer for CARP National, as well as the founding chair for CARP Nova Scotia and the senior spokesman for CARP in the Maritimes. Bill's connection with us, or with me, is through a charitable foundation that he developed that was very successful, and I was on the board of that charity, and I got to know Bill quite well as a result of that. He booked a couple of trips through us, a river cruise and a Rocky Mountaineer train ride, and as such got to experience our service, and decided to ask me if we'd be interested in representing CARP Nova Scotia as their official travel agency, and we were quite happy to do that. So we've been in business since 2003, coming up on 18 years now. It was 2 years before I retired from teaching at St. Pat's High School and Queen Elizabeth High School. We have a number of specialties that we developed over the years. We can do FITs, which is individual bookings, of course. But we also have a specialty in destination weddings, having done 130 in the Caribbean area over the past 7 or 8 years. That translates into booking groups, being comfortable with booking groups on coach tours, on river cruises, what have you. So if you have an anniversary, for example, coming up and you want extended family to travel with you or friends, I'm certainly very comfortable in helping you with that. As a result of our experience with destination weddings, we know a lot about the different places down in the Caribbean area, and have visited a lot of resorts as part of our efforts to be knowledgeable about the different resorts and what they have to offer to wedding clients, to families, and to adult onlys. River cruises, we have done 10 different itineraries around the world. That's in China, that's in Vietnam, that's in the United States on the Mississippi, Egypt, and in Europe as well, with several itineraries, and we can certainly help you with those bookings. Ocean cruises, we try to experience the popular ocean cruises itinerary that people are interested in, so that we can talk from experience there as well. Travel conditions, well, that's changing by the week. I know perhaps 2 presentations ago, we were in the midst of no vaccines arriving in Canada due to various problems at the manufacturing stations in Europe. That has changed, and the latest I have heard is that they're expecting to get more vaccines in than they had originally expected. So we are looking at September and possibly even earlier. By that time, most Canadians should have been vaccinated. And of course, it's important to recognize that the destinations that we want to travel to also have to match pace with us here in North America. So this is the 20th presentation of about 30 to this point, and counting. They occur at 6:30 every Tuesday evening at Atlantic Standard Time. And of course, after the presentation, a day or two after the presentation, our recording is uploaded to the CARP Travel website for your leisure to be able to either check it out again or see it for the first time. So we're also at AlmonTravel working on a solo traveler segment of our travel business. And it's something we are checking with a number of suppliers to see if they can offer that as an easy way to travel. So certainly if you're in that situation, feel free to get in touch with me. If you have any suggestions for other popular topics, I welcome them. Please get in touch with me. I am constantly going over the different destinations and itineraries and contacting representatives to see if they might be interested in hosting a presentation, as we have been doing. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Philip Solomon, who's the General Manager of TourCan Vacations, as well as Wendy Underwood of Prom Peru, Peru's National Tourism Board, who will be taking us on a tour of one of the world's bucket list destinations, Machu Picchu, Peru, and the Amazon River. So I'll let you folks take it away, and I'll be listening avidly.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Danny, and great to be back. This is Philip, and I apologize that you cannot see me, ladies and gentlemen, but a little technical hitch, but you'll be able to see me. I'm absolutely delighted to be sharing the platform this evening with you, Danny, and of course you, Wendy, from Peru. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about Peru. Wendy's going to start off. She's going to give you a great overview of the country of Peru, the destination, valuable information that you could know also prior to travel, and some general information. And then I will take over from Wendy, and I'm going to give you an example itinerary, really focusing on what the first-time traveler gets to experience. And from our experience at TourCan Vacations, what we see most people doing when they travel to Peru. And we'll also touch on an extension to the Amazon. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Wendy Underwood, who represents Prom Peru. So Wendy, over to you.
Yeah, gracias, Philip. So I'm Wendy. I work with Prom Peru, which is Peru's National Tourism Board. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of Peru, as I was absolutely thrilled when Danny invited us to come and talk to you about Peru, because I know, this time I know personally all I can think about right now is the places that are on my list and where I want to start traveling as soon as those restrictions are opened up. And I probably you do as well. We are just really hoping that Peru is on your list. Danny talked before about special occasions, birthdays, big anniversaries, things like that. And because Peru really is a bucket list destination for so many people, it's a really great way to acknowledge and celebrate some of those milestones in your life. And, even though we haven't been able to travel for the last year, we've still had all of those milestones. We still want to get out there and do it. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the country itself and where it is, and sort of like reasons that you actually want to maybe put it on your list. And then Philip's going to go through sort of what that would actually look like as an itinerary. So first of all, here we are with Peru. Peru is on the west coast of South America. It's about an 8-hour flight direct from Toronto. What you can see here is it's a pretty small country. And certainly as we look from Canada, we look down at this tiny country and we think, how could we spend more than, a week there? But this is an incredibly diverse country, not just in as far as the landscapes, but also the culture, the food, the history. I mean, it's a really amazing place. So you will have no trouble in filling. I mean, you could fill months there, but the area itself is pretty small. It's about, I think, a 1/12 of the size of Canada. Actually, I might have to check that. But the population living there is about the same size as Canada. So what you can see here is the sort of 3 zones of Peru. The one that you're probably most familiar with is the highlands in the middle, because that's where Machu Picchu, which is behind me right here, Machu Picchu and the Andes are there, as well as you can see that blue blob at the bottom, that's Lake Titicaca. So that takes up about 1/3 of the country. But to the west, you have the coastal region. That's actually where about 60% of the population lives. And that's where the largest city, Lima, the capital city of Peru, is. That's also where, as North Americans, most of us are going to fly into when we get to Peru. I know Philip is also going to tell you about a really exciting place that's just south of Lima, about 4 hours drive, which is the province of Ica and the Nazca lines. They're in that coastal region as well. And as you head up north, there are some amazing beaches there. But I want to draw your attention to the big green part of the country, which is the Amazon. So Amazon rainforest, 60% of Peru is actually rainforest, which is, perhaps not something that we ordinarily associate with Peru. We sort of divide it into the north and the south. In the north is actually where the Amazon Amazon River is. So you have these amazing river cruises and things like that. And then in the south, it's the Amazon, it's the basin. And, you know, it's an amazing, very diverse place for nature, adventures, bird watching, things like that. Languages spoken, like most of South America, Spanish is the primary language, although certainly, you know, you don't have to speak Spanish to get along very well. A lot of English is spoken, especially in the areas that most of us are going to when we travel. And you can see here, which I think is really nice, Quechua is actually pretty widely spoken in the highlands region, that brown strip on the map. Quechua is actually the language of the Incans. So you can really see that heritage is really still there. And the currency is the Nuevo Sole, which we get about 3 soles to 1 Canadian dollar at the moment. So I'm going to take you over what I think are 5 really great reasons to put Peru on your list. The first one is the history, and this is probably something that you already associate with Peru. It's that history. It's the Incan history. It's all this pre-Columbian history, and you will see these archaeological sites throughout the country. Honestly, there is almost an overwhelming number of them. Machu Picchu is the best known one for sure, but you literally, right in downtown Lima, there are these archaeological sites as well. So if you're a history buff, this is definitely a place. And of course, after pre-Columbian history, we get into that colonial history as well. So somewhere like Cusco actually marries the two. In the Plaza de Armas, which is the big plaza downtown, you'll have something like the cathedral, which is actually built on top of Incan sites as well, and in central Lima as well. This, you know, beautiful colonial architecture that really tells that part of the story. So history is the #1 reason. The second reason is the cultures, and you know, you'll see all of these things play into each other. So the cultures, we talk about those pre-Columbian cultures, you know, the Incas. So Machu Picchu was built about 500 years ago, and that was, you know, the Incas were the last of those pre-Columbian cultures before the Spanish, you know, came in and took over the country. Galleries and museums, festivals and celebrations. I mean, not that we are all really up for being crammed into a celebration and festival next to each other right now, but it is indicative of this really beautiful, bold and diverse culture that you have in Peru. And, you know, for instance, here we've got the Weavers, Tequila Island, Weavers, Lake Titicaca. So you'll see the way all of these cultures and communities interact. So if you're something of an anthropologist, this is also definitely a place you're going to be putting on your list. The next thing is actually probably my favorite thing about Peru, and that's the gastronomy, is the food. So we have here ceviche as their national dish, which is fresh seafood that's cured in lime or lemon juice with some ají amarillo, which is like a yellow chili, mild yellow chili, and onions. Pisco sour, you might have heard of those already. Pisco is it's like a grape brandy that's grown in the area called Pisco, which is actually in the province of Ica as well. And it's a cocktail you'll find everywhere. It's Pisco and lemon juice, egg whites, sugar, like a sugar syrup, and their cuncho bitters as well. I will say, you have to try them, but they are very potent. There's about 3 shots of liquor in everyone. So, you know, be aware. Destination dining, absolutely. If you are really into fine dining, 3 of the top 50 restaurants in the world are in Lima. So if that is something that you get excited about, Lima has to be on your list. And finally, one of my favorites is going to the markets. I love that I go to the markets and I don't even recognize half of the fruits and vegetables that I see there. So you can do market tours, you can take ceviche making classes, you can take a cocktail lesson as well. So if you're into food, Peru definitely should be on the list. And the next two sort of play into each other. So nature here, as I said, Sacred Valley here is the area around where Machu Picchu is in Cusco. So not only are we talking about culture, and we're talking about history, but we're also talking about some amazing nature experiences as well. The Inca Trail is a really famous hike that takes you to Machu Picchu, but even just sort of there are some lovely walks where for any level of fitness, you're really going to have a great opportunity to get out there into nature. Same, Manu National Park is in sort of that southern region of the Amazon. Again, you can paddleboard or kayak or just walk along the riverfront. It's a great way to get out there and really experience those really diverse landscapes that Peru is so good at. And the last one is the wildlife. So you've probably seen those postcards perhaps of Machu Picchu with the llamas. That's not photoshopped in, that is real. There are wild llamas who roam around there. And of course the Amazon, you're going to expect to see things like this capybara, which is like a giant guinea pig. You're going to see things like that. The bird watching, oh my goodness. Peru is really well known for the bird watching, and whether that's the condors that are in the Colca Canyon who get caught in those air drifts, which is just, that's a real bucket list thing for people who are bird watchers. But the Amazon is one of the most biodiverse areas in the world. So the birds that you see out there, and there are niche trips that will take you out there. I mean, that's really something amazing. So they're the 5 reasons I think, if you're really into any of those, Peru has to be on your list. So then I'm going to just go into a couple of quick facts. You don't need a visa for Peru. You just need 6 months on your passport. As I had mentioned, the Canadian dollar gets you really far in Peru. You get just under 3 nuevos soles for your Canadian dollar. A bottle of beer is going to set you back a toonie. A bottle of water is going to set you back a toonie. A bottle of beer is going to cost you a little bit more than that, but still not too much. And you can have a beautiful, 2-course indulgent lunch for about $20. Most tourism destinations are about an hour flight apart. So you're not going to waste a lot of time getting to and from different regions. And certainly Philip will take you through that, when he sort of shows you the itinerary of what Peru can look like for a first-time visitor. And finally, if you are looking for more information on Peru, Peru.travel is the official website. So you can do lots of research and take lots of notes, and then get in touch with someone like Danny at AlmonTravel, to make sure that you're going to be on a trip that really checks all of those boxes for the things you're excited about. How you're going to get to Peru, as I mentioned, we used to have direct flights from Toronto to Lima before the pandemic. They haven't been reinstated yet, but we do expect them to come back. They're just under 8 hours. And then other options are connecting within the US or through Mexico City. I want to say, and we'll reiterate this, all of these things, this whole situation is fluid right now. Every day we're getting updates. Canada has its own updates. So, whatever you are planning, whatever you're thinking about, make sure that you get in touch with a good travel agent like AlmonTravel, and they can really help you understand what you're going to need to take into account and what the situation is at the moment. So health, I know a lot of people have health questions. As soon as you say traveling to South America, they say, okay, is it safe? What about I'm not that fit, or whatever it might be. First of all, always go to a travel clinic. We always recommend that you go to a travel clinic, talk to medical professionals about what you are going to need, not what everyone else is going to need, but what you're going to need. And that might include things like anti-malarials if you're visiting the Amazon. In some areas, you'll need to have a yellow fever vaccination. And then also, if you're going to Machu Picchu in the Andes or down to Lake Titicaca, you might want to talk to them about altitude medications. And altitude sickness is something that you absolutely have to take seriously. If you are on a a tour with an operator that's as acclaimed as TourCan, they're going to be planning to help you acclimatize. So they're going to take you to the lower altitude areas before the higher altitude areas, so you can acclimatize. There are also some other things. You have to make sure that you stay hydrated, avoid having too many of those afternoon beverages, and you want to take it easy. You don't want to go out and try and run a marathon on your first day, or probably any day, but you don't want to go, you don't want to overdo it. You want to make sure that your body is acclimatized. And finally, only drink bottled water when you're in Peru. I mean, if you were there for a long time, I'm sure you would adapt, but no one wants to see their vacation derailed by, drinking tap water and getting ill. So just stick to the bottled water when you're there. And as I said, this is today's update. So as far as COVID-19, Peru has received the World Travel and Tourism Council's Safe Travels Destination. So that means that their government has implemented all of these protocols for hotels, transportation, tour operators, and sort of the whole tourism industry. Flights under 8 hours are approved for arrival. So they are accepting international arrivals into Peru. However, right now, you have to have had a negative test within 72 hours, and you still have to quarantine for 14 days. I mean, I don't think any of us are about to jump on a plane today and head to Peru, which is why you want to make sure that you keep updated with what the actual situation is. And cultural attractions, actually, I've just heard that this is actually not today's update. Cultural attractions, including Machu Picchu, were open last week. They're temporarily closed again. So until the end of this month, those cultural attractions are closed again. But always check with, and this is the value of having a great travel agent, is, as that resource to keep you updated. So I think that's it for me. I'm going to hand it back to you now, Philip, and he's going to take you through what your itinerary is going to look like if you choose to visit Peru.
Thank you, Wendy. My goodness, ladies and gentlemen, that was a great overview. Thank you so much, but also such valid information for you to know prior to travel to Peru, which is a great lead-in for me. Wendy, thank you, in that now that you are prepared for that journey, what is it that you can get to experience, particularly aiming at and looking at if you are a first-time traveler? So what we've done, ladies and gentlemen, is if you've got between 10 and 30 nights, this is what we suggest you get to see. Wendy has highlighted numerous sites. We can't cover them all in 10 to 13 days, but we're certainly going to give you the highlights and the key places to visit that we find most people go to and should be seen by the first-time traveler. We're going to start off in the city of Lima. We're going to make our way down to Ica. I'm going to highlight all this, across to Cusco, Machu Picchu, back to Lima, and then up to the Amazon area, where we're going to do a little excursion for 3 nights. So anything between 10 and 30 nights. As Wendy indicated, all flights coming to Lima, the capital city. The population, I think Wendy mentioned 32 million, of which about 10 million plus live in the city of Lima. It's a beautiful city on the coast, the political, economic hub. All the flights coming here, and this is where you will connect in for all your other flights. So we suggest a couple of days in Lima, some beautiful sights to be seen there. And when you travel to South America, in fact, Central and South America, the one thing you will always find in the cities, the towns and the villages is a square. And that square is usually there. It's a gathering place for people to get together, but also in many instances, it's home to some of the key historical places or buildings in that particular city or town. Let me give you some ideas. So this is the Playa Mayor. This is where you're certainly going to spend some time, do a lovely walkabout, the tour that will take you to see some of the magnificent structures that are there, including this beautiful Lima Cathedral, built in 1564. And ladies and gentlemen, the name that you're going to hear a lot of when you travel to Peru is a gentleman by the name of Francisco Pizarro, who really led the Spanish for the conquest of the Incas and founded the city of Lima he actually had a role to play in the actual design of this particular church. You'll also get to see the Royal Palace. It's a beautiful, grandiose Baroque style, dating back to the 1930s when it was restructured. Unfortunately, you can only see this from the outside, and there's nothing wrong with that, because you'll learn a lot about the history from your tour leader or your guide as you are making your way through these beautiful structures. One of the other beautiful places to visit is the incredible Church of San Francisco. Just have a look at that. This is what they call Baroque style, but here we refer to it as Lima Baroque. Lima style architecture. It is renowned not only for that, but also for the magnificent frescoes on the inside of the church. And I do believe that they discovered a Bible here that dates back to the 1500s that is still to be seen in this church. One of the other beautiful buildings in the area is the Torre Tagle Palace. Well, it's not really so much of a palace as it was the home of the treasurer of the Royal Spanish Fleet. This is where he used to hang out. Pretty nice place to stay. And if I'm not mistaken, I think today it is one of the government departments that operates from that. But just take a look at this beautiful building and that carving and the woodwork. And you're going to see so much of this as you make your way through Peru. One of the most important museums to be seen, of course, is the Laco Museum. The Laco Museum, which is located in Lima and really gives you a showcase of 5,000 years of Peruvian history and also Inca history. You're going to see a variety of artifacts, Inca artifacts, up to 40,000 pieces of ceramics. But what also makes this such a popular museum, Wendy, is the fact that it is home to an erotica section because of those wonderful ceramics that they discovered. But unfortunately, I will not be able to show those to you this evening. You will have to go to Lima and to the museum to check them out. In fact, they are magnificent works of art. So after a couple of days in Lima, we're going to move on. I just want to touch on something before we do, and I'm not going to spend much time with this. Wendy's already spoken about this being a foodie destination. You are going to be trying pisco sour. There's no doubt about it. And just want to reiterate what Wendy said. Be careful you do not drink a lot of this. It is potent, and particularly at high altitudes, it's not the best thing to do. The other thing you're going to try is ceviche. You'll probably get to try that immediately when you get to Lima, which is that lovely raw fish which has been marinated in that lime and lemon juice, and it cooks away in the acid. One other thing I want to mention is the coca tea. So the coca tea comes from the coca plant, and it's usually taken to help anyone who may have a little bit of altitude sickness. I do want to point out that this is a stimulant. So do not drink too much of this, because you'll end up being as high as a kite, and we don't want that to happen. And also, ladies and gentlemen, don't bring it home, whatever you do. So small sips and a little, and if you have some altitude sickness, it may help you through that. I'm not going to spend too much time on accommodations. What I am going to just point out to you in all the places I'm going to visit is that you can find a variety of accommodations. I'm going to highlight a local brand called the Casa Andina. I always like to stay in local hotels, local branded hotels, because you certainly get a feel of the country that you are visiting. So the Casa Andina will be something I'll be looking at. Wendy already mentioned, just south of Lima is a place called Nazca, something that you can consider including in your itinerary. Some people do this as a day trip. I find that that can be quite strenuous, and I would suggest maybe do it as an overnight stay and spend a night in Ica or one of the other places. And why do we actually go down to Nazca? This is where they discovered what is called the magnificent Nazca lines. So the Nazca lines are geoglyphs. So the question now is, what is a geoglyph? A geoglyph are pictures that are drawn in the earth by rocks and other objects. So the Nazca people who lived there created these incredible visuals that could only be seen from high up. So they constructed it down there, not knowing what it looks like from the top. Well, they knew what they were doing. How was it discovered? Around about the 1930s, when flight started getting going in this part of the world, a flight flew over this region and they discovered these incredible drawings on the earth. So just imagine all these rocks and objects that were moved about to create these incredible structures that you could only see from above. The question, of course, is why was it constructed? Why were they constructed? There's a whole bunch of theories. We could debate this for the rest of the evening. We're not going to do that. Some say it was done to identify underground water systems. Some believe it was done in honor of the deities, the heavenly deities. And then, of course, you have those outrageous theories where it was to help communicate with aliens, and maybe it was a runway for spacecraft. Anyway, I don't know that we're going to consider that one. But the point is, these are incredible structures. The flight is about 45 minutes or so. And if you can get that extra night into your itinerary, I would suggest that you do that. So back to Lima, we would go for a flight that's going to take us across to the city of Cusco. And as Wendy mentioned, most of the flights are under 2 hours. But the thing that we're going to do is when we arrive in Cusco, we're not going to spend our first nights there. We're going to go straight into an area called the Sacred Valley. So here's the city of Cusco, and this area is called the Sacred Valley. Why are we doing that? And Wendy also alluded to this. It has to do with altitude. So if you take a look at this visual, you can see the altitude or the height in Cusco, 11,000 plus feet, almost 3,500 meters above sea level. So what we do is we drive you to the Sacred Valley, and as you can see, it is at a much lower level, as is Machu Picchu. So we're really going to take you around this area to acclimatize you so that by the time we get back to Cusco, you should be well acclimatized for that high altitude. The Sacred Valley, again, we're going to look at the Casa Andina, a beautiful property located in the Sacred Valley, which abounds with hills, mountains, rivers. It's exquisitely beautiful. The property here is also beautiful. And again, you get that wonderful feel that you are actually staying in a Peruvian establishment. There's a variety of places to visit in the Sacred Valley. Our itinerary really does 2 nights. You can do a few more. And the places we're going to include is Pisac, as you can see here, Moray, and Ollantay Tambo. So let's take a look at what are we talking about here. One of the sites, or it's not really a site, it's a market. And Wendy spoke about the markets. This beautiful market, here you're going to see and learn about the textiles that are created by the people in this region. Colorful, bright. You're not only going to see that, but also meet up with the locals, learn and see their products and also their produce. Because this is a local market where the locals come and share their beautiful produce. Again, the food fresh from the region and out to the markets. You'll be able to mingle with these people, and also you will be able to meet up and see the locals in their local garb. Moving on. One of the other sites to be seen is a place called Moray. Now, this is really interesting, Moray. Moray is an archaeological site and, in fact, an agricultural experiment station. What does that mean? Well, we're dealing, and you're going to hear a lot about the Inca people. They were extremely innovative, really an inventive society. So what they decided to do, it is believed, so the theory goes, is that they wanted to see how different crops will grow at different levels. Now we're talking about altitude. So you would grow perhaps potatoes up there and beans down there to see how it works. Why? Because the difference in temperature from the bottom to the top could be as much as 15 degrees. And that has an impact on how these vegetables and other produce will grow. Again, very innovative and something completely different. Really, one of the key fortresses to visit in this area is a place called Ollantaytambo. So Ollantaytambo, why was it built by the Inca? Probably for defense purposes. We have a lot of rainforests in that area and other forests where there were other peoples living, and they were trying to come into this region. But there are a number of factors that make Ollantaytambo so incredibly interesting. Number one, there's a lot of theory about why it was built. Number two, it was really constructed in such a way that it was difficult to penetrate. And this was the one place where the Spanish did not succeed in defeating the Inca. And another reason why it was built was possibly as a place of worship or even for studying astronomy. But probably for me, the most amazing thing about this, as it is with so many of the Inca structures, is how they built it. You've got to go back 400-500 years and ask yourself, how did they build this? They didn't have steel and hammers and heaven knows what is used today to be able to construct this. How did they get the rocks there? How did they move it up? How were they able to carve these stones to look like what you see on the screen right now? What methods did they use? In this particular instance, this type of rock doesn't even come from this immediate region. It comes from another region. How did they get it there? And this is what makes Peru so incredibly mysterious and wonderfully magical. And you will see a lot of this as you make your way through. So this is the beautiful Ollantaytambo. After a couple of nights in the Sacred Valley, we're going to head off back to Ollantaytambo train station to hop on a train to take us to Aguascalientes, which is the base for getting to Machu Picchu. So the train that I'm representing or just going to be mentioning this evening is the beautiful Vista Dome. Vista Dome, you can now see by the visual why it is called that, the beautiful windows that are open, that you can see through from the top and on the sides. It's about 1.5 to 1.75 hour ride to Aguascalientes. There's light snacks and beverages. The scenery is beautiful. We hop on the train in Ollantaytambo and then eventually arrive in the town of Aguascalientes. So what we usually do in the itineraries here is when you arrive, we will immediately go and do sightseeing and visit the incredible Machu Picchu. So we know that Machu Picchu is this beautiful complex of palaces, plazas, temples, and homes. They may have been built as a ceremonial site, probably as a military stronghold. It could have been a retreat for the elites, ruling elites. What we do know is that when the Spanish came in the 1500s, it was abandoned and not discovered again until 1911 by a gentleman by the name of Hiram Bingham. In fact, there's even a train named after him, which also operates between the cities of Cusco and Aguascalientes. When they did the discovery, of course, they found there were all different types of sections where people could live. There was an agricultural section, there was a religious, spiritual section. And if I'm not mistaken, Wendy, it's now one of the new 7 wonders of the world.
It is. It is.
So think back 500 years. They had no iron. They had no steel. I don't even know if they had wheels at that time. And again, the question is, how were they able to construct this? Just look at the quality and architecture that went into this. It really is a mind-blowing experience when you see how this was constructed and where it was constructed and all those magical questions again about the why and the how. So we will spend some time, do our tour of Machu Picchu, and just for your information, ladies and gentlemen, there is a hotel in the close region. It's a sanctuary lodge. Often we just drop in there, we stop there for lunch. Yes, you can spend the night there if that is your option. We often do that as well. And there is another hotel that we use in the town of Aguas Calientes, the Casa do Céu. Again, local brand, fabulous, gives you that beautiful feeling or Peruvian atmosphere. And then often some tours do the one-night stay. So you will arrive in Machu Picchu, you'll go do your sightseeing, spend the night and leave the next day. Very often we encourage people to do 2 nights in this region to give you more time to go and experience Machu Picchu. You can do that on your own. There are buses that go up every 20 minutes and you can go on your own and you can do the beautiful sunrise visit in the morning. And also, if you are more adventurous, you may even want to consider taking a hike up Huayno Picchu, which gives you beautiful views of the area and Machu Picchu. So here's the thing. There is an extra cost for this. You do have to buy permits before you get there. And there has to be some reasonable fitness. As you can see from this, anything from 1 to 2 hours to get up, 45 minutes to get down, and certainly no fear of heights. And that's why I haven't gone near that particular place, because I don't handle heights too well. So it's a pretty unique experience if that's something you want to consider. So 2 nights in that area, back onto our train, and we're going to head off to the city of Cusco. There it is. And what's the first thing you see when you look at Cusco over there is that the gathering place, beautiful to walk around. Again, some historical buildings to be seen there. Of course, Cusco, very important in Inca history. It was the ancient capital of the Inca Empire. We do know that it's pretty high above sea level. By this time, you should be acclimatized. The Plaza de Armas, which is the square, the cathedral, and there are some other archaeological sites that you can get to visit just outside of Cusco itself, and it is the access to get you to Machu Picchu and the Sacred Valley. So sightseeing here, before I touch on the sightseeing, again, our Casa Andina, this was such a beautiful property. It used to be a manor house, I think dating back to the 1800s, and then was converted into a hotel, and really has that traditional feel about it, with that lovely little square in the center of the property, which is so typical of the region. So something to consider. So a couple of places to visit in the square itself. Well, certainly the cathedral, the Cusco Cathedral, that lovely Baroque style cathedral. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, it dates back to the 1500s, 1550s, and quite a lot of the stone for that building of the cathedral actually comes from one of the sites, Sacsayhuaman, that was used for the construction of this cathedral. So the sightseeing would include a little walkabout, learning about the locals, the people, and the history of the various buildings within this little square itself. And then we're going to take you just outside of Cusco, where you can see the city in the background, to this incredible site, the ruins of Sacsayhuaman. And this again really brings us to the mystery and the magic of Peru. Why? Again, the questions are asked. Why was it built? Probably for defense purposes. It could have been for other reasons. And the question again arises, how were they able to build it? How did they cut the stone to look the way that it does and build it the way that they did? And you will hear different theories, and I'm not going to tell you those because you need to go to Peru to hear it from firsthand from the guides, and actually learn about it there. So a couple of nights, but I am going to suggest that you consider this as well, and this touches on something that Wendy said: food, food, and food. You're going to understand Peru is a foodie destination, from the ocean to the table, from the farm to the table. In Cusco, there's a fabulous market called the San Pedro Market, where you can go do your buying of fresh produce. So you speak to Danny when you want to go to Peru to include a little cooking class, just half a day. You can decide whether you want to do lunch or dinner. We'll connect you with your local chef. You'll go to the market. You'll do your purchasing of the products. You'll go back with the chef and you will cook a meal. And as Wendy indicated, they'll even teach you how to make pisco sour. The important thing about the cooking class is that you should not be drinking too much pisco sour because you do not want to mess up the content of the actual meal itself. But a lot of fun and something to consider. So speak to Danny and he'll build that into an itinerary for you. So from Cusco, we're going to then head back to Lima. And from Lima, if you want to extend your journey, we're going to go up to Iquitos to be able to go and visit the beautiful and magnificent Amazon. So getting there again, it's just on 2 hours, just under 2 hours. And once you get to Iquitos, you can see here the actual river itself, the Amazon. Once you get there, that's it. You fly in, and from there on, it's on boats to get wherever you want to get. So once you arrive, you are transported down to the Iquitos dock, and you will then be taken along the river to whichever lodge you select. There are a variety. There's Ceiba Tops, there's Explorama, and a whole bunch more, which I'm not going to mention now, but I am going to say to you that we're using Ceiba Tops this evening as our example of one of the properties. Now, what we find is that some people do a 3-night journey, others prefer to do a 5-night journey. So what is it that you would get to experience is what I'm going to show you now. So once you get there, onto the boat, and off you go on this motorized vehicle boat to your lodge, your first experience on the beautiful Amazon River. Ceiba Tops, it is probably, by star rating, I would imagine they'd give it probably a 4-star rating. It is one of the more luxury properties in that little region itself. And you can spend anything here from 3 nights onwards. Beautiful, comfortable accommodations. So what is it that you can get to do in the time that you are visiting the Amazon? There are a variety of options and opportunities. I'm going to touch on a few. One is the canopy walk that most folks want to participate in. So this is quite extraordinary, as you can see by this. Again, I believe it's a beautiful thing to do. Having a thing with heights, I didn't quite make it to the canopy myself, Wendy and Danny, but there's the information for you. 115 feet high, 500 meters long. Well, that's almost a half a kilometer, and it spans over about 14 trees. But just take a look at this. Look at the beautiful view and a magnificent walk. People who do it and really enjoy it believe it is absolutely tremendous. So that is one of the activities that you can cover when visiting the Amazon. And then a variety of water activities, either out canoeing, or you can go on motorized boats out into the Amazon to do and see the flora and fauna of this area. Wendy's already mentioned to you all about the nature and the different animals that are there, and also, again, the birding. Let's get back to Wendy's mentioning the prolific bird life in this area. A couple of examples there, of course, the macaw, the toucan, not TourCan, toucan, and then a couple of animals that you may get to see, the sloth, the caiman, the crocodile, the caiman crocodile, and what everybody hopes to see while traveling along the Amazon River is this unique dolphin, the river pink dolphin, super intelligent. If I'm not mistaken, I did read somewhere that they really have, they're very well developed and big brains, and they are incredibly intelligent, and everybody hopes to get to see them on some of the water activities. Plenty of hikes that you can go on if you wish to do so, and also take an opportunity to visit the locals. So there's a little tour that will take you to visit the local communities, learn about their lifestyle, learn about their day-to-day way of living, where they get their food, how they cook their food. It really is interesting, but also to learn about their history and culture. One of the rather interesting places to visit in the Amazon is a place called the Ethnobotanical Garden. So you can imagine all the different species of plants that exist in this area of the Amazon. There are about 240 different species that can be used for medicinal and other uses. So what we can arrange for you is to meet up with a local shaman and to learn about all these different plants which are native to the region and the extent to which they are used for medicinal purposes, for remedies, and so on.
And actually, if I can just butt in that, you might in fact already be quite familiar with one of them if you're having a early evening gin and tonic, because quinine, which is what you find in your tonic water, is actually from the bark of a tree from Peru, from the Amazon. So it's not. I mean, originally that was considered medicinal to help fight malaria, but I mean, you know, medicinal can mean a few different things.
Indeed. And thank you, Wendy, for that. And there you go. So now you know where your part of your gin actually comes from. Thanks for that. So 3 or 5 nights you can spend in this region, and then we'll take the boat back to Iquitos. Iquitos, we will connect with our flight that will take us back to Lima. We have to say goodbye to the beautiful country of Peru, and I want to reiterate, this is an example itinerary. Wendy did indicate there's a lot more that can be seen. So if you have time and you want to extend your journey, you talk to Danny, and Danny will be able to indicate to you what other places can be visited to extend your journey. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this itinerary with you in a destination that we call magical and mystical. So thank you very much. And once again, I'm very happy to have shared the platform with you, Wendy and Danny. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Philip. And I want to applaud both of you in your knowledge and your enthusiasm. It was very entertaining the whole time listening. I really appreciate that. I had a couple of things that came to mind. It's a brand new destination for me. I can't say I've been there, and as I have with many of the other presentations, so it's certainly an eye opener, and it's high on my bucket list too. And I think it's something that if I don't get a chance to do fairly soon, I may not get a chance to do it at all. Just curious though, I know that you had mentioned that as long as you were reasonably fit, you should not have any problems getting around. I've always understood Machu Picchu to have a lot of climbing involved there. Perhaps you can straighten me out on that.
Yeah, Wendy?
I can certainly say, I mean, I think a lot of people associate Machu Picchu with doing the Inca Trail, which is like a 3-day hike. And certainly you need to be of above average fitness to do that. But for actually visiting Machu Picchu itself, I mean, we've had people who, I mean, it's not wheelchair friendly, I will say that. You're allowed to take a cane in that has a rubber tip. You know, no walking, like telemark poles. But I mean, that should give you a bit of an idea of how physically fit you need to be. You know, if you're someone who walks with a cane, you can still visit Machu Picchu. Yeah, we actually had a couple of questions as well, like while we're just talking about Machu Picchu. One question we had was about people getting walking and being caught in the mudslides. And that's, again, you know, when it comes to hiking the Inca Trail, that's something you want to keep in mind. Certainly it's the Inca Trail is, well, it's a little hard to tell. This year it was closed for longer than average, but it's usually closed for the month of February. And for exactly that reason. It's too wet, and there are those risks, and also it gets churned up. So, but in general, if you're visiting Machu Picchu, the weather is not going to be that much of a big deal unless you're going to climb Huayna Picchu and things like that. But the weather is not going to be a huge deal for you. But I will also say that in general, North America's summertime is the most popular time to visit Machu Picchu. It's when the weather is sort of the most temperate and the nicest, and the least amount of rain.
Right. If I can just add to that, Wendy, also, you know, you have the vehicles that take you up, the buses, and they take you almost right to Machu Picchu itself. So there's no clamoring actually to get to the site itself. Most of the activity happens when you are walking around, just going up high, I guess you can call them high stairs or steps to get from one level to the next. But getting there from Aguas Calientes they almost drop you right at the site.
And these days you are only, and this is pre-COVID, you're only allowed into Machu Picchu with an accredited guide. So you'll have a guide, like if you are having mobility issues, your guide is going to be able to take you sort of, you know, maybe you don't get to see everything, but, you know, they will plan a route that is sort of commensurate with your abilities. So you get to see, you know, the best things that you can see.
Were there any other questions there?
There was one other question about the Incas. Are there any Incas left, or have they all been assimilated? And actually, there are lots of people with Incan heritage. In fact, on one of the first slides that I showed, I had mentioned how many people speak Quechua, which is 16%. And those people, I mean, Quechua was the language of the Incans. A lot of that 16% of the population would have Incan roots. So I don't know that they've all necessarily been, I mean, I can't say assimilated into the culture, and there are certainly pockets of communities that, you know, would probably be almost, you know, 100% Incan.
I've been able to enjoy a canopy walk when I visited Costa Rica. I think your canopy walk seemed to be even higher than we would have experienced in Costa Rica, but it was an incredible experience. You know, to be able to look out where the animals actually are moving about in the canopy was just marvelous. I also had a comment on the coca tea. It helps you perhaps both with altitude sickness or perhaps not even caring about it, I guess, if you have to. Anyway, so again, I want to make a couple of comments, folks, about what's coming up next week, and we'll conclude after that. At 6:30 Tuesday, February 23rd, we have a presentation by Indus Travel. The speaker is Harish Shiraf, and he's going to be talking about a spiritual journey to the Holy Land, visiting, among others, Masada, Tel Aviv, Nazareth, Jerusalem, and the Dead Sea. So viewers, tune in if that's something that is of interest to you. Wendy and Philip, again, Philip, a wonderful presentation. Your enthusiasm and knowledge has made this a very interesting tour approved. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. And thank you for inviting us to present.
Indeed. Be safe, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.